What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Kick-Ass Podcast. We are here today to discuss the continuation of the Rock, Roman, Cody Rhodes story going forward. But we have a bit of some, I don't want to say breaking news, but some fun news. This is some big news from an article that dropped from ESPN from this morning. So we'll definitely be going over that here as well, which it could be exciting and well, not could be exciting, but could be a bit of exciting news going forward. I would say long term, possibly looking at WrestleMania 41. So we'll definitely be getting into that. That, of course, being if you haven't seen Twitter or wherever you get your wrestling news from via social media, Stone Cold Steve Austin was or had an interview done with a writer from ESPN. So we'll be going over that article. I have it put up here. Going to read through that because some very interesting and some hopeful statements that he made here. He pretty much essentially just said what a lot of wrestlers and the majority of wrestlers say, something to the effect of, never say never. But he referenced a certain someone that I think we all would be hoping for. Yeah, we'll definitely be getting into that. But also wanted to follow up, of course, on the Rock, Roman, Seth, Cody, WrestleMania 40 story and kind of jits of everything that's going on there. The response from Cody from last night on Raw and the lack thereof, really, and the hope that we will hopefully get some type of acknowledgement, no pun intended, rather, on SmackDown regarding what happened last Friday. And it's crazy to think too that all this has gone down within a week. It's just insane how much the wrestling world can change and just how much the landscape changes almost daily sometimes and just how when people make their voices heard and whether they really will attribute the fan backlash to The Rock being inserted into the main event storyline, or if this was part of the plan all along, or maybe it was a little bit of both. I just think it's cool, like I said on the review from last week. I won't get into that again, but I think it's cool that they acknowledged the backlash from the fans and they adjusted and they are adapting and going accordingly. So with that being said, we're going to get into all that because I don't want to spend too much time here. But again, thank you guys so much for checking out the show. Feel free to follow on Twitter at @kickashpodcast_. You can follow me on Twitter as well at ASHMANNS. But like I said, we're going to get right into it here. But again, as I was referencing to start off the show, we have big news dropping from Stone Cold Steve Austin. He did an interview, it looks like, with a writer from ESPN, Mark Raimondi. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. But I'm going to read through it here. I'm going to skip a couple portions, but the main thing he was discussing was, of course, the always main topic there is another possibility for another match, right? And one more match type thing. It starts off to say Steve was working on a project recently that required him to look back at his huge return match with Kevin Owens at WrestleMania 38 2 years ago. Stone Cold said he couldn't discuss what project that was, but going over the tape of that bout, his first in 19 years, was illuminating. I dissected what I did, and I know that I can improve on what I did, Austin told ESPN in a recent interview. Does that mean we could yet see another match from one of the most iconic performers in the history of professional wrestling? Austin would not rule it out. I said I'd never get in a ring again unless all the stars align. And for some reason, somehow they all did. And at the age of 57, I headlined the first night of WrestleMania. I never thought I'd do that. Have told me that when I first retired in 2003, I'd have said, "You're crazy." So I'm not going to sit here and say no to anything because you never say never in this crazy business of sports entertainment. Almost said professional wrestling. um, they go on to say it does not appear Austin, now 59 years old, will perform at WrestleMania 40 this year. However, his greatest rival, Dwayne The Rock Johnson, will be in action, which is interesting they still reference that because this was just released earlier today, February 13th. And for those fans yearning for Stone Cold at the biggest event of the year, there are options. And here's where we get into the good stuff. They go on to reference the fact that Austin will be featured prominently in WWE's 2K24's new game, Showcase of the Immortals, since it's obviously WrestleMania 40. They're gonna obviously play into that big story there. The other, it looks like, well, there's a few that they go through: Shawn and Razor, Hogan and Andre, and then it looks like they actually mentioned the three-way, the triple threat match between Becky, Charlotte, and Ronda at WrestleMania 35, which is pretty cool. They also discuss the classic match with Bret Hart at WrestleMania 13 in 97, the one that took the Stone Cold character to another level, and how that would be playable in the game. Austin referenced they said, as will Austin's WrestleMania 17 encounter with The Rock in 2001 and the aforementioned comeback match with Owens. Oh, okay. So, okay, interesting tie in there. That's what they're referencing. Okay. Why didn't they just say the video game then? The Hart match stands out specifically for Austin, who closed that match with blood dripping down his face, which is the iconic picture that we've all seen when he was in the sharpshooter. Austin said, Brett kind of put me on the map. He saw me coming. He knew we could make money together. And without Brett, my career would not have been what it was. So the fact that fans can play it and do it in this game, it's going to be pretty badass. And then you have a picture there. They have a lot of screen grabs. So if you haven't seen the ESPN article yet, I definitely recommend checking out. It's pretty cool with some of the visuals that they have from the game. I'm definitely going to get it. I was still sore. From the WrestleMania from the WWE 2K20 fiasco that was one of, I think, maybe the first game that I'd ever pre-ordered, and that shit was trash. So I've still been scarred ever since. But we'll see. But I'm definitely going to get the game regardless. Or not regardless, but I'm definitely going to get the game depending on the reviews. So you guys are going to be my guinea pigs as usual, because like I said, I ain't trying to waste another. I don't even want to see how much I spent on that shit. But I got the package because it was a lot of cool souvenirs, and it was like the Rey Mysterio pack that I got. So it was pretty dope. At least that paid off. But getting back to the important stuff here, Austin did say a potential matchup with CM Punk would be a good one, quote unquote. Because when he was asked whether he had an idea of what opponent he would want and what would likely be his final career match, Austin said he did, but he did not want to mention the name because he was not promoting the match, nor did he want to add pressure on WWE or the foe to make it happen. And that's when he did say a potential matchup with CM Punk would be a good one. Now, I did see briefly before I logged on here that there was a clip. So I'm not sure if the video clip that's floating around on Twitter of him sitting down, Austin rather sitting down, is the audio from this interview. So if it is, I'd love to see his body language and stuff like that, and how he was asked about CM Punk, or if he brought it up himself, because he just mentioned there that he wouldn't want to put the unneeded pressure really on that foe. So if he was then asked about CM Punk directly, then obviously that would change things a bit there. But Austin does go on to say, I like Punk and I think Punk likes me. So as long as he can take a Stone Cold Stunner, Austin said with a laugh, I consider him a good friend, or a great friend rather, a great guy and a great wrestler who's had a great career. We'll see. Which is dope, guys. Like, of course, everyone was wanting that back in 2013, I believe it was, when, ironically enough, the video game came out that Punk was on the cover of. I'm pretty certain. And we did get that one visual of them backstage. So, man, and if we're talking WrestleMania, well, before we get there, just to finish up the article, they go on to say that doesn't mean Austin, a WWE Hall of Famer and 6-time WWE champion, will come back and have another match, but it doesn't mean he won't either. Austin says, I love the sports entertainment business more than anything I've ever done in my life. And you get a dose of it and you want more. And so here I am talking to you a couple years later about doing it again. And that's how addicting it is to me. Just to talk about it. Or, okay. And that's how addicting it is to me. Just to talk about it and I get excited and I'll start talking too fast. But it's not going to happen, but it could. Which is just dope. It's insane to sit here and read an article and to think that possibly for WrestleMania 40, and again, like, I'm way, just fantasy booking, I guess, here, but man, like, how crazy would it be if at WrestleMania 41 we get Stone Cold Steve Austin versus CM Punk? Like, what the fuck? Like, that would be wild. That would just be wild to see how life has come full circle, at least in the wrestling world. That would just be just funny. Like, I can't even, it makes me laugh just sitting here thinking about it, but just because of the irony with it, with everything. So we'll definitely obviously speculate more into that as we get closer. As the writer here, Mark Raimondi, I think his name was, no one is obviously even spitballing and even putting any percentage that that Austin rather would be doing anything for WrestleMania 40, and I obviously don't think he needs to. It is interesting though that he is working on another project which required him to look at that match. So again, I don't know if that was just in regards to the video game that he had to look back on that, or what. But he didn't want to reference what that project was. So again, it's very interesting to see that he's still even entertaining the idea, because for a long time it was just not even a thing. And first of all, I'm happy for him health wise that he's even able to have this discussion, right? And this possibility that, hey, like he didn't hate WrestleMania 38, and his body held up, right? And he feels fine, and of course I'm sure he was sore, right? But even to sit here and think of what he did, he took a suplex on the concrete. Like, what? Like, it's just crazy. So the fact, like I said, that we could even just be sitting here pondering about the fact that we could possibly get CM Punk and Stone Cold for WrestleMania 41, that would be pretty dope. Um, yeah, I would love to see a heel Punk versus Austin, right? Because I think that's the full potential and the full juice that you would get out of that. Obviously Punk being a good guy is great and everything, but man, there's just something about that pissed off Punk, and I think that we get that fully when he's a bad guy. So I don't know if the love for Punk is gonna wear off by then, but man, I mean, shit, if you have the option to get, and I'm gonna sound like a hypocrite, right? But it's completely different. I'll explain if I remember getting back to it. But in my opinion, it's completely different. A possibility of Punk and Austin compared to Rock and Roman, or Rock and Cody. And just sticking with the Rock and Roman example, I people, and why I said I feel like a hypocrite almost is because of the whole parallels with Austin and Rock Attitude Era. It kind of doesn't even need me to sit here and explain, right? The not even part-timer status for both of them coming in and taking a WrestleMania main event. It's kind of like, oh, well, you can't sit here and shit talk The Rock for on one hand and then praise and wish for Austin on the next, which is very fair, but it's completely different. You know what I mean? And that's why I said almost don't even want to get into all the speculating and fantasy booking of it, because we would have to even see what the landscape is. If Punk is champion going into WrestleMania 41, then I don't obviously want that, because same situation. Austin possibly coming back and doing a match against Punk at 41 would not need the title, obviously, right? So that would be one thing. Depending on what Punk is doing, if Punk is recently making his return at that point and using the Rumble as his redemption to get back to win the Rumble, right? To what he feels like he probably should have done this year had he not been injured, and then being out for however long he's going to be, 6-8 months, if it even, I would say probably 6 months, because he's already had his surgery. Um, but if he's in his own story at that point, you don't want to necessarily derail that. But I think Austin could be a very interesting chapter in the book of Punk. So again, I'm not gonna get too in depth on that yet, because this was just one article, and everyone, myself included, is probably gonna be losing their mind about it. Or maybe I'm just simply overreacting, and he says shit like this all the time. But I think this one, for whatever reason, just stood out to me more today. And it was just very intriguing, especially with all the hype, with everything going on this year. So just very cool to see. But moving on to addressing some interesting, I guess, is putting it mildly, and maybe trying to put it nicely, that The Rock got on Twitter from the press conference last week. And we'll start there because they'll kind of get this, just, I don't even know how to describe it. Just this nonsense really out of the way, but it'll also tie into Monday Night Raw, Cody's response, and what we hopefully will be getting on SmackDown with the whole WrestleMania of it all. But if you haven't been living under a rock, and no pun intended there, WWE had their press conference last week for WrestleMania 40, right? Which had The Rock, Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns, and Seth Rollins on stage addressing WrestleMania 40. And Cody finally made his decision. I don't need to explain to y'all. If you're watching this, you already know. I bring that up because there was a clip. It looks like it was probably like a TikTok clip that I don't even know. I'm assuming this individual is a reporter or something to that effect. Let's see what he has in his bio. But the individual's name is Nick Sorter. His bio says he's on scene covering stories MSM won't. And then he references some different stations that he's been on. But it apparently looks like he's a reporter who's been in the Maui area covering the devastation that occurred out there. So again, not discrediting him. I just personally have never heard of him, and I'm not really familiar with him. So I'm just not really sure credential wise, or just or if he's just someone out there just trying to gain awareness for Maui and what's happening out there. So I have no judgment of him one way or the other. I just think that the tweet that I'm about to read from him is completely missing the bucket, to say again the least. And dude, and again, before I even read it, if his whole goal was to take something that he knows is just wrestling storyline based and try to use the publicity that and the attention that it's getting and shift that onto what's happening in Maui and in Hawaii, and I guess the lack of attention that it's getting and the lack of recovery that it's giving. And again, I'm not going to sit here and say I know much about the recovery process. Maybe I should know more, and maybe I should do my due diligence to see what isn't happening out there. But we'll address that here in a second. But if that's the route that he was going, just to reference and kind of pull that clip of The Rock getting booed at Las Vegas to say that it was for something completely different and to tie it in that way, then to each their own. You know what I mean? People do what they want to do and what they feel they got to do for clickbait nowadays. But that's just kind of completely wrong in my opinion. So with that being said, I'm going to read Nick's original tweet, and then we'll obviously get to the Rock's response there, because and Rock even I think referenced it as well. He doesn't necessarily respond to a lot of negativity when it comes to specific tweets like this and certain posts like this. So the fact that he even addressed it shows that it impacted him a lot. Which is again why I in my opinion, it left a really bad taste in my mouth for Nick Sorter to tie a wrestling angle into a very real life event. But again, that's just my opinion and my speculation of his tweet. So, with that being said, we'll get into what he said. He posted with an exclamation mark, and he posted this text, and then there's a clip right underneath of what he posted of The Rock getting booed on stage at the press conference, which clearly shows it's a wrestling storyline, guys, and it's a wrestling thing. So again, that plays into why I'm just still kind of perplexed that of his motives. So we'll just leave it at that. Nick says with the red exclamation mark and in all caps, crowd in Vegas boos The Rock, demanding he follow through with aid for Maui. Oprah and Dwayne, and he tags The Rock, Johnson promised tens of millions to the victims of the Maui fires, but many victims still have not seen a dime. It looks like the audience is fully America first and is demanding The Rock and Oprah follow through with their commitment to take care of the people of Lahaina. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, which I most likely did, so I apologize for that. He says the crowd started booing and chanting Maui, 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 and then says make it happen. And then of course is the clip that he posted. They weren't chanting Maui. And again, I hate to even rebut that, but they no, dude, no. And again, that's why I'm perplexed on his motives. So I'm looking through here to see. Okay, so he did post a follow-up in response to The Rock's response as well. But right after that, on the same day, he responded to that original post and he said, keep in mind, a ton of people from Hawaii have been forced to the mainland, with the majority of them ending up in the Las Vegas area. So he was saying that's why people were there chanting Maui and booing The Rock, because of the lack of money that he and Oprah donated getting to the actual victims. Which again is not why I'm here, and I'm not even gonna get into that. You know, a true disaster and a true devastating act that happened, and he's trying to tie that into a wrestling storyline, or the more I sit here and think about it and talk about it, it just kind of makes me even more upset. But we even had Sean Ross Sapp replying here saying, "You're a con man. I was there covering the event. They're chanting Cody." So there it is. But Nick Sorter did post on February 12th stating, obviously the claim made in this post has been disputed by The Rock himself, which seems to have some validity. I'm leaving this post up simply to provide context to the ongoing dispute between the two of us regarding funding for Maui. I'm willing to hear The Rock out, and I'm hoping we can work together to force the government to actually provide meaningful aid to these victims. I appreciate your support while I'm on the ground here trying to get to the bottom of this. It's incredibly stressful. So again, I have no idea who this man is. I think and it shouldn't even, I don't know, the fact that you have to like clarify or even say anything to this effect is kind of sad. But I think, especially with The Rock, like I think that he obviously, to say the least, wants everyone taken care of it and is trying to do the right thing. Again, I don't know who, what, where, when, why with the funds that were donated by him and Oprah. I don't know much about that at all. I remember when it first happened, there being some type of backlash, and again, I don't know. So I say that to say that, you know what I mean? So if there's pieces that I'm missing that tie all this together, then let me know on Twitter, in the comments here. Let me know, you know what I mean? And I'm sure more will be brought to light. But I just found it very interesting that and kind of uh I don't know, just kind of sickening that he would bring in he would tie that in, and whether and maybe he did think it was they were actually chanting Maui, and if he did, and he was under a completely different interpretation himself, he being Nick Sorter, then hey, shit happens, and people are wrong, you know what I mean? But I don't know, but The Rock had a very very lengthy response, which I thought was very very interesting for a lot of different reasons. So that's why I wanted to address it here. He says, I typically refrain from responding to toxic, false clickbait garbage like this because I hate dignifying bullshit with a response. But when you use Hawaii's tragic events to draw attention to yourself, I won't stay quiet. This moment you're referring to is from our at WWE press conference this past Thursday, where I turned quote unquote heel. And then he says, wrestling parlance for bad guy. I'm playing it up with our crowd as they boo. It's what we do in our WWE universe, and we all love every second of it. For the record, our People's Fund of Maui has already delivered over $50 million to over 8,000 survivors who were affected by the fires, and I'm grateful to the bone that we've been the primary funders. Hawaii is where I grew up, where I raised my children throughout the year, and where my ancestors are buried. These are my Polynesian people, and these are our American people. You can't imagine how much they are still struggling daily to put their lives back together and take care of each other. Our Poly American people are as resilient as people come, and they will raise and get back on their feet. Nick, instead of posting bullshit like this that you know is false, I encourage you to post something positive for Hawaii, for our Polynesian American people, or actually take positive action and come to Hawaii to help out in an uplifting way. I'm in Hawaii now, and I guarantee you'll get great content that can actually make a difference in people's lives. Genuinely. Let's put our energy and our online platforms into lifting people up, acknowledging the good things that people do, raising awareness for the suffering in ways that can effectively help. It takes so much effort to be negative and create and spread bullshit. But when you spread positivity, kindness, and lead by example, you can really impact lives. I'm sorry to all our Poly Hawaiian Ohana of Maui for shining light on this toxicity as you struggle through tough times. I always try to be the Nawapono. I'm sorry, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Love you. Aloha, DJ. And then he had that. So that was his response. And he had quote tweeted in response to Nick's order. So that being said, guys, I guess like I said, just sad that it had to be brought to that, But I do think it's interesting that The Rock referenced that he was turning heel or that he had turned heel. So I mean, it was my opinion obvious, but some people were still saying no, it doesn't necessarily mean that it was a heel turn, at the press conference. But I mean, dude said it right there, so we'll see. We will see. But with that being said, and kind of branching off of that, it led us into Monday Night Raw and the promo that we were all hoping that Cody was going to give us in response to what happened at the press conference, in response to him saying that he does want to face Roman Reigns, just not at WrestleMania, on SmackDown the week prior to that. So just for some clarity, so we'll reference that and get into that here really quick, because I think that it was a good segment from Raw. So with that being said, we'll get right into it. And shout out to ProWrestling.net for the transcription. Jason Powell does a great job just documenting the entire breakdown of the show, the promos, and things like that. So shout out to all of the writers out there who do it, because it could not be me. I barely could sit here and review it speaking, so I can't even imagine like typing it out and truly making it make sense. You know what I mean, for readers. So shout out to them guys. But getting into it, Cody made his entrance, of course, wearing his suit. Received a very nice reaction, which is just so cool to continue to hear and see, in my opinion. And it's just like I said last week on one of the shows. It's crazy how cut cut and dry Cody Rhodes is as a babyface, and yet he gets so much love. I think so. That's why I'm that's what I'm saying. Like they just have something special in Cody, and it's just so impressive that he's able to take a babyface character like that in 2024 and make it something that people truly love. So shout out to him. But Cody said it took him some time to say that and credited the fans with being the reason he could. Oh, I skipped a sentence there. My apologies. Like, that doesn't make any sense. But Cody asked Lexington crowd what they wanted to talk about. He said he believes he will be headlining WrestleMania XL when he challenges Roman Reigns, and a loud Cody chant broke out while a graphic displayed the match. And that's when Cody said it took him a while to say that, and that he credited the fans with being the reason that he could. He said the fans made their voices heard. We want Cody chant broke out. He thanked the fans again and said he doesn't know how he can ever repay them. Actually, maybe there's only one way. He said, as the passionate fans, or he said he's passionate about WWE, the fans, and that he wears his heart on his sleeve. Cody said he didn't want to become emotional though, and then he would become a crybaby, which everyone knows is what The Rock called some of the Cody fans. Fans booed and then chanted Rocky sucks. Cody said that while everyone was saying they wanted him, there was one man who didn't want to hear it. Cody said that man is the most famous man alive and a potential presidential nominee, which is crazy to think of as well. Um, just in general, right? Just in general. Regardless of how you feel about it, it's just crazy to think about. Cody set up footage of The Rock of The Rock on the Pat McAfee show talking about Cody's crybabies, and the whole line about the Nuggets came up. And Cody said, "But I do have to ask, what are we supposed to do with the Nuggets?" So Cody then looked to McAfee, McAfee said he thinks he's supposed to shove him up his ass, which is kind of funny. Um, Cody said he is a fan of The Rock and thinks everyone has been at one point or another. He said one thing The Rock doesn't do well is listen. He said Cody didn't say anything to defile The Rock's ancestors, and at the press conference, at the press conference rather, and yet The Rock slapped him in the face in public. Cody said he saw a look in Rock's eyes that was no longer the people's energy; it was malevolent. Cody said that The Rock hit him, which means he will have to hit Rock back, which I think maybe a response to what CM Punk was saying as well, that Cody needed to hit Rock back. That is when Seth Rollins made his entrance and really just took over the segment, in my opinion. I'm not going to go in depth what he said here, because you guys should really just check it out. I just think Seth's delivery, the story that he laid out there, and just the beginning, middle, and the end of why he first wanted to face Cody, but now how he wants to have Cody's back and be Cody's shield against Roman Reigns, I think was just very, very well done and just very beautifully said. But I will reference a little bit. He says, because Cody started by thanking Rollins for coming to his aid at the press conference. What can I say other than you're welcome? Rollins said before cackling. Rollins said that as much as he looked forward to defending his title against Cody at Mania, he gets why Cody made the decision that he did. You got to finish your story, right? And Cody smiled. Rollins said that there are millions of people around the world who want to see Cody finish his story. Rollins told Cody that he needs to finish his story for himself, for his father, for Rollins, and for all the fans. Rollins said that if Cody doesn't beat Roman Reigns and take his title, the landscape on the other side of WrestleMania is very dark. Rollins referred to Reigns as the most powerful champion of the modern era. Rollins said that Reigns would gain more power and show up even less often to defend the title. Rollins said it might be their last chance to take that power and give it to the people. The fans started chanting for Cody again. Rollins asked Cody what his plan is, and I remember when he asked him that, Cody kind of looked perplexed, I liked that reaction from Cody. He seemed very genuine. Rollins said Cody got screwed out of the title in the main event of last year's WrestleMania, and that Cody fought his way back, but the deck is stacked against him, and the bar has been raised. So pretty much again, just asking him, what is your plan, my guy? Like, what are you going to do to change the outcome from last year to this year? Rollins then said, or again asked Cody what is he going to do, and said Cody has to deal with the biggest star and the most influential man in the entire entertainment industry. You've got to deal with The Rock. Yeah, fans started to chant Rocky sucks again, which is still kind of funny to hear. Rollins continued to say that he and Cody haven't seen eye to eye, but Rollins recalled Cody saying that he wants to take everything from Reigns, and Rollins said he felt that deep in his soul. That's why he stepped up at the press conference, rather. Rollins said that he's sick of arrogant, entitled pricks like Rock and Reigns thinking they can do whatever they want and always getting away with it. Rollins took partial responsibility for the man that Reigns has become, but said he could have never imagined the monster that he's become now. Rollins said the monster now has two heads because he's standing side by side with the only person on the planet who is as entitled and selfish as he is. He then went on to say that when it comes to fighting the bloodline, Rock and Reigns, there's only one man on earth who is uniquely suited to be Cody's shield, which is a very cool line. Rollins said that Rollins said that man was once an architect and now he's a visionary and a revolutionary. And then that's when he dropped the mic and left the ring. Again, it was so well done. I obviously can't do it justice here, but you guys need to check that out. If you haven't seen Raw from last night, you definitely have to check out that segment. But I think that sets us up nicely for a lead into SmackDown. Yes, I don't believe they've promoted or advertised that Cody Rhodes is going to be there on SmackDown, but they did advertise in a quick preview for SmackDown that The Rock and Roman Reigns will be there and they will be appearing. I believe, let me see. I think they're in Salt Lake City, Utah next week, or this coming week rather, for SmackDown. So the full lineup for SmackDown is the following. They have Rock and Roman Reigns appearing, Tiffany Stratton versus Shotzi in an Elimination Chamber qualifier match. It looks like all the matches are qualifiers. So we have that match. We have Naomi versus Zelina Vega, which should be good. Pretty good, actually. We should have a Logan Paul versus. We'll have a Logan Paul versus The Miz match for. Thinking of Logan Paul in a chamber, I think that's going to be cool. I think that would be a very, very cool match and a cool environment for him. As much as I'd like to see Miz in there too, for whatever reason, I'm really jumping on the Miz train lately. Although I think I've liked him more in the past than most people, or at least like appreciated him a little bit more. But there's just something about him and R-Truth. I think that they need to have a moment at WrestleMania, and they need to be maybe in the lineup for a tag team championship match. We'll see though. But I do think that it would be fun though, especially with how everything is playing out with Judgment Day and things like that. I'm not hopeful for the Miz there at all. But then lastly, we'll have Kevin Owens facing off against Dominic Mysterio for an Elimination Chamber qualifying match as well. So it's gonna be a good addition to SmackDown. I'm very interested to see and hopeful rather that we get some type of response. And maybe response isn't the right word, but some type of acknowledgement from The Rock. I was hopeful we were going to get it from Cody, and that's why maybe we get an unprompted appearance from Cody, right? An unadvertised show up from Cody on SmackDown. I think that would be. It would just make sense, right? If you're Cody Rhodes, as I'm sitting here even thinking about it, I think that's the route they're going to go. Why or how, especially if with how sporadic these two guys show up throughout the year, especially The Rock, why wouldn't you show up if you just got bitch slapped in front of millions and millions of people, right? Last week at the press conference, and The Rock and Roman Reigns are going to be on SmackDown, why wouldn't you show up there? So I think we get a surprise appearance from Cody Rhodes, bum rushing the segment. I think Rock and Reigns is going to possibly, maybe not even open the show. Probably you want to drag it out to have people stay locked into the show itself. So maybe the beginning of hour 2, or obviously the main event. But it's gonna be very interesting to see if we get a Cody Rhodes appearance. I think, like I said, it just makes sense. If you slap me in the face, like, damn right, and I know you're gonna be in Utah next Friday. Okay, but I'll see you there. So I think if we don't see Cody, I think that's another miss in my opinion. But I do hope that we get some type of acknowledgement at some point of why Cody said, I do want to face you, Roman, just not at WrestleMania. And then a couple days later saying he does choose Roman at WrestleMania. I think it'd be something very simple as once I gave it to The Rock, you can even make up whatever he said in his ear, like I realized that it was the wrong decision and that The Rock is an egomaniac and they're gonna make it about them and it's not about them, it's about the people. Something to that effect. And he can even say, yes, I say that it's finishing the story, but it's my story for the people. It's what winning the title that Dusty didn't hold represents. It's for the common man. And just take it that route, you know what I mean? So I think it's very simple. It'll take maybe a minute. But I think they need to do it. I think it's important. I hope they just don't overlook it and just move on like nothing happened. But those are just some quick-ish thoughts. From the follow up from the past couple shows and what we have looking forward to SmackDown this week, and some very unexpected possible news for Stone Cold and what that can mean for WrestleMania 41. But again, guys, thank you so much for checking out the show. I really appreciate it. And if you have any feedback or anything, or any feedback, yeah, just in general for the show or for what you think could happen for WrestleMania 40 if we do end up getting a tag match. I did want to reference really quick that little almost like preview that they did for it's like a movie trailer almost is what I called it. For WrestleMania 40 with Cody, Seth, Rock, and Roman. I just think it was so well done and it's so cool and it gets you pumped. So let me guys know if you saw that, if you want to see more of that in that direction from the company. And they even included that from Triple H. Triple H said it's a new era for WWE. So it's very cool to see where they're going and to see what could possibly be just the beginning for the company going forward. So again, guys, thank you so much for checking out the show and hope you have a good night.